Dunn, and welcome to Broad Appeal, a show where we feature boss women and queen bees who are writing and living by their own rules. And today we're going to talk to Timika Downes. And Timika lives right here in Milton, and she wears many business hats, including nurse, Lice Clinic owner, and podcaster. Welcome, Timika.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
We're super psyched to have you here today.
Yeah.
So, before we talk about all of these business endeavors, can you tell me about your background? Because your initial background is not in nursing or podcasting or any of that.
No, it's not. My initial background is in accounting.
Okay.
I got my master's in accounting after I finished undergrad. I went straight in, and I ended up working at one of the big four accounting firms here in Boston. And at a certain point, the way that I got into nursing was at a certain point, my mother went on a trip and had to be flown back from a cruise because her gallbladder went. And when I was visiting her in the hospital after the surgery, I spoke to the nurses, and I had always wanted to be a doctor before accounting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I talked to them, and they encouraged me just in that interaction, and I went for it, and I changed, and I became a nurse.
That's amazing. So you were pretty far into the whole accounting thing before you made your switch. Like, a lot of people will be like, oh, well, I did my undergrad in this, and then I switched to that. But you were, Big Four. That's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
But that's great. So you got into something that you liked more.
Yes, something with some human contact.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of things that I loved about accounting, but I did crave that human interaction. I like to talk to people. I like to just be in with people. And a lot of times in the audit world that I was in, you were on the computer. You were in the back. So
you were in a computer, and that was pretty much
that was my friend.
Yeah. No. For some people, but not you. I can totally tell in the few minutes that we even talked before this. So then you had to go back, though, to nursing school. How was that?
Yes. It wasn't as bad as it could have been. I had a bachelor's degree. I had a master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went back, it was maybe the start of when they started to do those accelerated nursing programs. And there was one that was starting at UMass Boston the next semester or two, and they weren't quite sure when it was going to start.
Mm-hmm.
But because of all of the credits that I had, I was able to transfer all of that in, and it only took 5 semesters, so 2.5 years.
Not too bad.
It was very similar to doing it the other way, like waiting and doing it.
Right.
But yeah, it was definitely a transition. It was a financial decision.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up going into labor during my maternity final. And it was the professor.
Your maternity final?
Yeah. Yeah, she's like, I have noticed that you've had 5 contractions every 5 minutes. And I was like, thank you. Here's my final.
I need to go now.
Yes.
That's hilarious. So then after you finished your 2.5 years, then you went and worked for a hospital.
Yes.
Okay.
I worked for a hospital. I went to a couple of hospitals, and the one that I was at the longest was South Shore Hospital down in Weymouth.
Yep.
I loved it there. I worked nights with the best women ever, and
shout out.
Yeah, shout out to the night shift. And when my daughter got to a certain age, the opportunity to switch to school nursing came about, and I wasn't sure I wanted to be a school nurse, but I did know that doing the nights and being with her, and I did feel that I should at least give it a try.
Yeah.
It can be kind of confusing to get into school nursing, and since the opportunity presented itself, I just went for it and I tried it. I stayed on at the hospital per diem, but I made the switch, and now I enjoy my summers off, and I enjoy a nice school day every day.
Yeah. And then you get to have a little bit more flexibility with your kids. And then you also have time to do some other things.
Yes.
Okay, so I know somebody has to do it, but how and why did you get into the lice removal business?
Yeah. Not what I thought I would be doing, but
not your senior quote.
No, not that. Everyone watching is probably itching right now. But
I know.
Yes. But I went. there was a time at my job at one of the schools where we had a lice outbreak, and
The worst.
the worst thing ever.
The worst.
And
we've had lice outbreaks in my family. It is not fun. I can't even imagine in an entire school.
yeah, and I bet many, many people in your family got it in that one instance. Just it spreads very quickly.
Right.
So for this particular time, before that outbreak, I would check kids for lice, but I didn't enjoy it. After that outbreak, we checked the entire school of 660 kids plus the staff.
Oh my gosh.
And 1/3 of the building had lice. We called the Department of Public Health. What are we going to do? And we actually called one of the lice clinics that was in the area at the time. And they came in and they showed us about the combs that you can do if you want to DIY lice removal. But also they had the machine that dehydrates the lice, and they can get it out and guarantee it in about 45 minutes to an hour.
What is this magical machine? I have not heard of this magical machine. What is this?
It's awesome. It's called the Airlay machine.
What's it look like? Is it big?
Yes, I wish I could have brought one today. It's not that big. It could fit on this table, and it has wheels.
Okay.
And then it has a heated component and a pronged tip.
Okay.
And there's a new tip used for every person. We go through your hair in sections, and the heat from this blown air is it's set to such a degree and to such a velocity that it's dehydrating all of the eggs.
As it heats.
As it heats,
Okay.
it's dehydrating.
Okay.
So when you're going through, and the eggs, which I have to look at them under microscopes. Before the machine, they look like a full balloon, blown up. After the machine, they look like like a raisin.
Like a raisin. Yes,
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So it stops the process of
Completely.
It stops the cycle, and it's really wonderful.
Right.
It doesn't take very long, and we guarantee it. You leave, you don't have to do any follow-up combing.
Right.
You don't have to do any follow-up oiling.
You have to do
You are done.
Panicking.
You don't have to do any all you have to do is clean the beds and
Right.
that very little bit, but you're not in the cycle where you have to the
Constantly
cycle of
be
life
checking.
Yeah.
So
it's a little bit of peace of mind for the parents.
it's a lot of peace of mind. It's a lot of peace of mind. So okay, so you use this magical machine, which I just heard of, which sounds awesome. What about the more traditional methods of removing lice? So the stuff you see at the store, the cream, all of that stuff. What do you think about that?
Well, I felt horrible at the time that it wasn't at the time of that lice outbreak, but eventually I had to deal with lice in my own family. And the process of using those chemicals, one, they smell very bad.
Yeah.
They
have a lot of warnings on them.
They have
too.
a lot of warnings.
Yeah.
They cause hives in someone who's more sensitive. So there's already that.
Right.
But after you apply it, and then you go to do the comb out component with the tiny little comb that they provide, you realize that the stuff is still alive. It's not killed by this chemical that you've now exposed your children or your nieces and nephews or whomever to. So I used to think that, and a lot of doctors and nurse practitioners also who come into the clinic eventually, they think that the people at home aren't putting it on, or they're not doing the job right, or they're not being diligent.
Right.
But I was the most diligent,
Right.
and I still had a multiple week process, and called one of those clinics myself. So the difference between having a busy schedule with your children and your work and dinners and everything else that you're doing, and having to treat lice every night, because you have to comb and apply multiple times until it's gone.
Yeah.
And I think that it's just the time savings that you have to put the value on to go and get it done. If that's something that you're dealing with, where you still have life to do,
which most of us
do, then it's a great option.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds fantastic. So how can we prevent lice? Can we prevent lice?
Yeah.
So how?
So when we came in today, I gave
Just don't
you a
go
hug.
anywhere? Don't go anywhere. Oh, yeah, you did give me a hug.
And I was thinking.
Did we touch hair?
We touched hair, yeah.
Well, my hair touches everything, so, oh my gosh. Okay, so were you like, oh.
No, yeah, I was like, oh, I'm hugging? Okay, no, it's okay. I have to tell myself, it's all right, you can still have human contact.
You're a little more sensitive than other people probably, too, knowing what you know.
But I'm a hugger, so
yeah.
You can check your hair every week, or you can check your kids' hair every week. You can refrain on as much hugging other children. So, it's little kids who have it first.
Yes.
And they're all over each other, and it's really difficult to get them to stay apart. So putting their hair up in a ponytail, a bun, a braid, 2 braids, keeps it close to their head. And then there are some mint sprays that you can do, you can use. We have a mint spray.
A mint spray?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I love mint.
I know.
So you spray it on your hair? I put it in my mojitos.
Oh.
Who knew I could do this too?
You could also drink mojitos.
While you're spraying your hair?
Yeah, and while you're
perfect.
Yes, you can use rosemary or peppermint smells.
Interesting. Okay.
And that kind of repels lice. It's not a 100%
right.
guarantee.
It's just an assistant.
Yes, it's
sort
just
of
an
thing.
assistant.
Yeah.
So we have the little 4-ounce bottles. We have 8-ounce, and you can just spray each shoulder. Where they're going to be hugging. Spray the clothes if you'd like. And,
okay. I never thought to
quick.
spray the clothes. That's interesting. And it totally makes sense. They'll want to hop on those clothes if they don't smell the way they want them to.
Yes. They don't fly. They don't jump. It's definitely the hair-to-hair contact, and they kind of swing over.
They swing.
Like the hair, there's some static going on, and the hairs cross and everything, and they make their way over. Yeah. But the scents are really good, and you could even make your own if you have.
If you happen to have, say, like a 4x6 mint patch in your yard, for example, you could maybe do something with that. Yeah. I don't know anyone that has that though.
Well, you can get the essential oils if you, like if you have the peppermint drop.
Yeah. And you can make your own spray with those.
Yeah, you can make your own.
Do you just put that in like a spray of water, or?
So I don't make my own. I just have it at the clinic, so I don't have to do that. But I know that one of our techs, actually for her elastics, she has the essential oils. She puts it in a cup and she soaks her elastics in them.
That is genius.
And then she uses those so that it's on the smell of the elastic and not, something that she has.
And it's so interesting. It's the smell. They don't like the smell.
That's the smell.
That's good to know. That's a good tip. So that we don't get too itchy, because I'm like a little itchy. I'm like a little itchy. So let's talk about your other things. We talked about all your hats. We talked about your nursing hat, your, no pun intended, lice hat, and now we're going to talk about your podcast. So you have a podcast that has nothing to do with nursing or lice.
No.
What is it?
So I am the co-host on the House of Fi podcast. And
Fi.
Yes, Fi.
Not pie. Okay.
Not pie. House of Fi, which stands for the House of Financial Independence.
Okay, so FI.
FI.
All right.
FI is the new buzzword. It's a movement that's happening, you could say, but it's really just a bunch of people, a group of people that feel as though they want to take better control of their finances, and when you are really serious about doing it, you tend to go through a progression of steps.
Okay.
And so I've gone through those steps, and in fact, if I wasn't pursuing financial independence, I probably would not have opened the clinic. I wouldn't have been in the financial place to open the clinic.
Okay, so what was your primary reason for opening the clinic?
So
other than helping people, obviously, because there is absolutely a need for this.
Yes.
Okay, so other than helping people, what was your secondary reason, I guess?
Yeah, so definitely helping people, and I saw the need from being a school nurse and seeing the outbreaks and everything. But in addition to that, I wanted to create a side business. It started out with the idea of creating a side hustle, but it has turned into a full-blown business. And there's a slight difference, I think. Maybe not. It's turned into a bigger side hustle than I thought.
Right. When I think of hustle, I think a little bit less time. It sounds like this is more of a legit business. This is
a brick and mortar location.
Almost full time.
Yes, it is open 7 days a week.
Right.
And it has a staff, and it is. But the funny thing about opening your own business is that it's kind of like creating a clone of yourself. That's doing this thing over here while you're doing this thing over here. And so I'm doing this and maybe that over here, doing jobs and businesses that require me to physically be there. So I have to physically be there as a nurse,
right.
and I have to physically be there as a podcast host. But by hiring other people and growing a group of people that I really love and that are being supportive of my business, I don't always have to be there
right.
at that business.
So you've been able to sort of step back a little bit.
Yes.
And this is helping you achieve financial independence.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I like it.
Yeah, it's great. So could you talk a little bit like about the steps? You mentioned there's like a process.
Yes, and it's personal finance, and so everybody's coming from a different starting point.
Yep.
And the process becomes very personalized to you and what your dreams become, and those dreams usually come out as a part of going through the process.
Mm-hmm. So the whys, sort
the
of
why
like the why.
Phi,
Yeah.
The why of phi, yeah.
Nice.
And for me, I started from a place where I did have student loan debt. I
Mm-hmm.
had been to school 3 times.
Yes.
And I did what I could to mitigate it.
Right.
I worked. I got some scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up working for the school in my last
So you probably got the tuition.
So I got some tuition reimbursement, but I still came out after the interest and the time with, it had ballooned up to $94,000
that
of
hurts.
student loans. Yeah. And that's over 3 different periods.
Mm-hmm.
But I was able to pay it off, and not
Amazing.
on a huge
Timeline.
Yeah, not in a huge timeline, and not on what I would consider to be a huge salary. You think of paying off $94,000.
Right. You didn't win the lottery.
I did not.
You weren't making 12 figures.
No.
Right.
No, I'm still not making 12 figures.
Darn. Maybe you need to add another business.
But I did use some principles and planned it out, paid it off, cut everything. It's at times more painful than not. To cut the cable, to cut this, cut that, and put every dollar towards those student loans.
Mm-hmm.
But it was short term, less than a year, to really get the last bulk of it.
Right.
And then after you get to that place where you don't have that type of payment anymore, and you've optimized your budget in a way that you can free up this cash flow,
Mm-hmm.
you start to think, okay, well, now what am I going to do with the cash flow?
What else can I pay for?
Yeah.
As opposed to, oh, I'm going to go shopping.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's a different mindset.
It's a different
your
mindset.
mindset has shifted.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for me, there's things that I've purchased in the past. I've purchased cars. They
Mhm.
depreciate. I've purchased houses. Hopefully will appreciate.
Hopefully they do not depreciate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this was a chance to purchase something that I had the goal of it appreciating.
Mhm.
And I knew that it wasn't too much of a commitment financially, given that I had freed up some cash flow,
Mhm.
where I couldn't take the risk and open it and learn and develop a business. So I did, and it has been good. It really has. And that's where I am. That's how it happened.
So awesome. And so that you did that, and then you're like, oh, now I'm going to talk about this with other people on my podcast.
Yeah.
So you're on your podcast, are you teaching people these sort of initial steps, and then, I don't know, are there advanced steps too?
Yes, there are.
Yeah.
So yes, I will teach whatever I can. I have the accounting background.
Mhm.
I work in a school, and I see how they teach. I see how they create the lesson plans. I see that process,
Mhm.
and then I'm a nurse. So it's all teaching and prescription and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it actually comes together very nicely. There are steps that you take after debt payoff, or if you didn't start with any debt.
Mhm.
There's investment steps. There's ways to, different people in the community travel hacks, so they use like the points and everything. And there are other components of it.
Yeah.
There are people who are choosing to travel the world.
Mhm.
And there's just little things that people dream of and then they make happen. And you get to see that in being a part of that community. And it's just very inspiring. And it also helps you to remove those limiting beliefs that you might have in your own mind that you can't do something.
Right. Because you see all these people.
You see it, and they're normal.
Right.
Normal people. They're
Right.
doing very extraordinary things.
Mhm.
But they're normal.
Right.
And so
Going-
am I.
Right.
So So let's do it. Let's do something extraordinary. Let's try. And you get this one chance, and at the end of it, you want to make sure that you tried what you wanted to try.
Yeah, and so there's a whole community. It's almost like it's a kind of a movement. I mean, you do see more and more of this financial independence sort of movement. And I personally have looked into it, and I'm like, ooh, that looks painful, you know, or that sounds painful, but it seems like you could also take pieces of it and put that into effect. For example, cutting cable and putting that towards something, or trying not to have as much takeout and putting that towards something. Little things.
Yes, it's kind of like a game, I guess, in certain ways. I mean, I have little kids. I have 12, 10, and 4-year-old, and they do like to play their games. And sometimes teaching them some of the financial concepts, I kind of try to gamify it. But you can look at it in any way that you want to. You choose the life and you have the power to create the life that you want. And so if there are things that you feel you're not getting, or if you're feeling overburdened by debt, or if you're feeling like you want to get to a different level, seeing the resources that are out there on YouTube, podcasts, books, radio, TV, seeing what other women are doing can help you to take that leap,
get out of the sort of rut a little bit,
and take from one person or another what helps you get to your next level. It's ultimately your race against yourself yesterday,
That sounds fantastic and so inspirational. Thank you so much for talking to us about this.
Oh, no problem.
So now we're just going to take a tiny little break, and we're going to make a cocktail. So we'll be right back. Hey everybody, today we are going to make a Drunk Jack Frosty. So this is super special for the holidays, and it's pretty because it's blue. And it's also very easy. So today we're just going to stir it up, but you can also blend this, especially if you make a batch. Which is super fun, and it looks a little bit more festive when it's blended. You can also treat the rim of the glass with some of that thick sanding sugar. Unfortunately, I could not find my thick sanding sugar today, but that's another idea to make it really pretty for the holidays. So what we have here is an ounce of vodka. We have an ounce of champagne or Prosecco, a half an ounce of blue curacao, and about a half an ounce of lemonade. And again, I would recommend trying this out for yourself first, just to see if you want to adjust these ingredients just a little bit, because everybody's different. So all I'm going to do is add the vodka, 1 part vodka, 1 part champagne or Prosecco, half a part of the blue curacao. See how pretty it is? And then a half a part of the lemonade. So super pretty. Just stir it gently with a bunch of ice in there. And I am going to add a lemon wedge, if I can possibly get it on the glass. Awesome. Cheers. Fantastic. Enjoy.
So one thing that I love to do to help my family stay on track is meal prep. On the weekends, we go food shopping, and then we make our meals or prep our meals for the entire week. It saves me time, just in case I need to run to the clinic, or on the nights that I don't feel like thinking of something to cook.
That's an awesome tip. And you've been so inspirational to us today, talking about how to get us on track financially, how to get rid of those things in our hair, and meal prep. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much for chatting today.
Yes, I had fun.
And telling your story. Now, so if people want to either check out your Lice Clinic, or if they want to check out your podcast, how can they find you?
So you can go to lcamedford.com. It's Lice Clinic of America, Medford, so LCA. Or if you wanted to hear my podcast, it's House of Fi podcast, and you can find that wherever you listen to your podcasts. Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes, it's everywhere, even YouTube.
Thank you again for joining us today. It was so nice to chat with you, Timika Downes.
All right. You too.
All right, thank you everybody. And for more inspirational stories about boss women, check out broadappealtv.com. Thanks.